let the sheNEDigans begin. Long live the sheNEDigans.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the topic of this video. As always, let's talk sheNEDigans. So, with the Rise of Skywalker now out on digital services and the physical release coming out in, actually next week, I thought this would be a great time to talk about basically how I rank all of the Star Wars movies. And yes, I'm basically going to be ranking all of the Star Wars movies that I reviewed in December/early January. So, all 15 of them. Yay. Basically, I'm just going to quickly go through this video. I'm going to rank them one by one, do a quick description of why I think the movie's either bad, or it's really good, or where it's ranked, and so on and so forth. If you guys want to see a full review of what I think of each movie, then, I have a whole list of reviews right over here on the YouTube's channel that you can go ahead and take a look at. So, if you guys want a more in-depth analysis of what I think of these movies, you can take a look at them on the channel. So, how exactly am I going to rank these? Well, oddly enough, not by how I rank them by my machete order, or machete rankings, basically. Machete order is a completely different thing when it comes to Star Wars. So, basically, how I'm going to rank them is by quality, so basically how I rank them machete-wise, my point system, and also basically how much I enjoyed the movie, whether or not I think the story in of itself has any impact on the Star Wars mythos whatsoever. That's basically it. Now, I know a lot of you are not necessarily going to agree with this list, and that's okay. I completely understand. You guys might have a completely different opinion of how you guys necessarily think of the Star Wars movies than I do. And like I said, that's perfectly fine, because there's no other fan base that's more divisive than the Star Wars fan base, oddly enough. But I thought this would be a great time to kind of get my opinion down with all the Star Wars movies down in one video. So, let's get this thing started, shall we? The Clone Wars. The movie, not the TV show. I think the TV show is absolutely amazing. However, oddly enough, I rank this movie all the way at the bottom because, well, it's just boring. And there's nothing more that I find more insulting in a Star Wars movie than it not having anything to do with the Star Wars mythos or just, the overall plot of anything is, well, it's just completely boring, and in my opinion, I think not well made at all. The dialogue's bad, the animation is very stiff at the beginning of this whole Clone Wars venture anyway. The story is just, for me, it just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't really add anything to the Star Wars mythos, other than Ahsoka. Ahsoka is a great addition to the Star Wars mythos, but she's not really enough to go ahead and save this movie. As much as I love Ahsoka, I think this movie is a big pile of bantha poodoo. The Star Wars Holiday Special. Enough said. Why, it's at 14. Okay, why is this higher than the Clone Wars? Well, it's hilariously entertaining in how awful it is. And honestly, I can at least get that out of this rather than a movie that's completely boring like the Clone Wars, in my personal opinion. The Last Jedi. Oh boy, here we go. So, personally, this is actually a little bit hard. There are many elements of The Last Jedi that I think are incredibly well made, and it's an overall very good, story, and it does add some stuff to the mythos and to the overall arcing story of Star Wars. However, a lot of the plot is absolutely nonsensical, at least to me. It makes no sense. If it makes sense to you, then good on you. That's fine. There are many odd decisions that a lot of the characters make in this movie, which I think, once again, make absolutely no sense. I think it takes an absolute dump on legendary characters, and then on top of that, I think that the overall tone and just many other elements of this movie just do not fit into Star Wars. I think this is the most not Star Wars movie that's Star Wars, if that makes any sense. It feels more like a Marvel product than a Star Wars product. Then on top of that, with the director basically throwing out all important plot points that were made in The Force Awakens and basically saying, oh, that's not important. That's not important either. This is also not important. Basically, in my opinion, it just doesn't fit. And there's a lot of other reasons. You can go check out the review. The Rise of Skywalker. I feel really bad about The Rise of Skywalker for a multitude of reasons. One, this I can truly see was what J.J. Abrams was probably planning for Star Wars. And if he had complete control of 7, 8, and 9, I think this whole trilogy would have actually worked out very well. However, well, it didn't. So, honestly, I do pull a little bit of fault for J.J. Abrams. I mean, oddly enough, as much as I hate The Last Jedi, I am not really happy with him basically throwing out a lot of the plot elements from The Last Jedi that, at least some of them that I thought were very important because, well, they were kind of important. Now what on earth is happening to that little kid that was left at the end of The Last Jedi? There's just, there's still unanswered questions. So, and then on top of that, just the whole Palpatine thing coming back right at the last minute and a whole bunch of other, I feel like this movie was also just a little bit too nostalgic for my tastes and, just a whole bunch of other stuff. This movie was a complete mess, and although there were elements about it that made me, as a fanboy, very happy, this is still an incredibly poorly made movie than, well, a lot of them. The Ewok Adventure Battle for Endor. Okay, this movie is, I don't know what it is. Personally, it's really hard. Quality-wise, I think it's actually better than, well, the first movie. Because, I mean, it feels like there's a much more of a narrative and more cohesive pacing to this movie compared to the first one. However, whenever I watch it, I always feel dirty after watching it. I mean, I think it's unnecessarily dark when it tries to be, with a lot of, like, the killing off of Sindel's entire family, and, the Ewoks getting captured and a whole bunch of stuff. I mean, there are a few likable elements about it, such as Noah, the only Star Wars character with glasses. But, I mean, this movie is not actually canon, so, take that with a grain of salt, whatever I think about this movie. But I do enjoy it to a certain degree, but it's certainly not a good Star Wars movie. Attack of the Clones. Now, originally, before all the Disney movies came out, this was actually at the bottom of my list. But, honestly, after watching a lot of the other Star Wars movies and literally having to review them all during the month of December / early January, there were some elements that I was okay with in Attack of the Clones. I still think it's the weakest out of all of the original saga movies. I really think it is the weakest out of all of them. The acting with Hayden Christensen is absolutely awful. The romance between Anakin Skywalker and Padme is bleh. And then on top of that, overall, I just feel like with a lot of things that happen in this movie, I don't know. Personally, it just feels very off to me. As a Star Wars story, it does add a lot to the mythos, such as where did the clone troopers come from? Where did the stormtroopers come from? And all that kind of stuff. And I thought, all that stuff was like really cool and how it ties into Jango and Boba Fett and whatnot. So I really did like a lot of those elements. On top of that, Ewan McGregor's Obi-Wan Kenobi is still a blast. So, hey, it got over The Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker. So good on you, Attack of the Clones. Solo, a Star Wars story. Now, personally, I think this movie it shouldn't have been made. This movie is fine, and that's kind of the hard thing. It's fine. And I think it's really enjoyable to watch. I think it's a lot better made compared to The Rise of Skywalker. But overall, I think the movie it doesn't belong here. The only thing you find out is where Han Solo got the Millennium Falcon from, where he got his gun from, where he met Chewbacca, and we kind of already got a lot of those details from movies, and all it really did in this movie was show, like, oh yeah, we're just showing you that. And it's like, it's fine, but overall, it doesn't really add anything to Star Wars other than the fact that, hey, Darth Maul is still alive, which, once again, we knew because of the Clone Wars and Rebels, so, once again, didn't really add anything. However, I did kind of enjoy this movie as at least it was a good, fun ride, and that's what I can say about Solo: A Star Wars Story. The Ewok Adventure, Caravan of Courage. Now, personally, I have a huge nostalgic attachment to this movie. I personally really like it, I enjoy it, and there's a lot of elements about it that I do genuinely like. Once again, the movie's not canon anymore, but I still kind of include it within my Star Wars marathoning just because, well, it doesn't necessarily take away anything if you, or add anything if you, take it out or add it in. It doesn't ruin the timeline of anything unless there's like some books out there or something, which I don't know anything about. But basically, it's an enjoyable story, and I think it does have its place in the Star Wars mythos to a degree. Yes, it's not canon. I will repeat that again, and I realize that, but I still think for me, it is still a good nostalgic trip for me, even though it's not necessarily the best out of a lot of things. The Force Awakens. Okay, this I thought was a genuinely good comeback for Star Wars. It is a carbon copy of A New Hope, but it's a good carbon copy of A New Hope. I really enjoyed this movie. I enjoyed Rey, Finn, Poe, Kylo Ren, all the characters. I thought they were genuinely really, really good. And then seeing Han Solo back, Princess Leia, or General Leia, and, C-3PO and R2-D2, I thought, like, all these characters coming back and then seeing the new age of characters coming in, I thought this was a wonderful comeback for Star Wars. And when I first saw it, was incredibly looking forward to where this new trilogy could go.
And then I was severely disappointed.
A New Hope. Okay, this is where I think you guys are going to start hating me a little bit. So, here's the thing. I love A New Hope. We're now in basically what I would argue the good territory of Star Wars movies for me. I really do like A New Hope. I remember the first time I watched it, and since then, I've never looked at cinema the same way again, especially considering, science fiction fantasy, which is why I consider Star Wars. The characters and whatnot, I still think have obviously aged well. I mean, Star Wars has been going on forever. I actually do watch A New Hope a little bit more than Empire Strikes Back, but the quality of Empire Strikes Back just absolutely outmatches A New Hope in so many regards. Even though A New Hope is still a genuinely good movie, and it started everything, it is not my favorite of all the Star Wars movies. The Phantom Menace. Okay, so once again, this is a little bit on the nostalgia side, but also there is a few reasons why I do defend this movie in many regards. So personally, I think The Phantom Menace is an underrated Star Wars movie in many regards. A lot of people hate it for Jar Jar, the politics, young Anakin Skywalker, and some of those things I can really understand, such as Anakin Skywalker. I think there's plenty of times when he's a little bit annoying, but I honestly do still enjoy Jake Lloyd as young Anakin Skywalker through some points of the movie. Jar Jar Binks, yeah, I absolutely hate Jar Jar Binks, but I don't think he's enough to call Phantom Menace the worst Star Wars movie ever. And then as for the politics, I actually enjoy the politics in this movie. A lot of people don't, and I really don't understand, because there are some political moments throughout all the Star Wars movies. The Empire Strikes Back. Oddly enough, this is actually the Star Wars movie I watched the least, in a manner of speaking. But the thing is that this is an incredibly well-made Star Wars movie, if not the best Star Wars movie. But it's so hard for me to explain. I just don't like it in comparison to all the other Star Wars movies. So I put it really high because of what it did for Star Wars, and the fact that it's an incredibly well-made movie, especially as a follow-up to A New Hope. And like I said, there are many elements about this movie I incredibly enjoy. The battle for Hoth, Darth Vader revealing that he's Luke's father, some of the stuff on Bespin, you gotta like Lando Calrissian, and many other elements. But honestly, I think it does have some middle movie syndrome where it is a genuinely good movie, but I don't know. I just personally don't like it in comparison to a lot of the other Star Wars movies. Rogue One, a Star Wars story. I know, I put it above Empire Strikes Back. Sue me. So, I really, really like this movie for a lot of reasons. Personally, I think this is the strongest out of all the Star Wars movies that was made by Disney. It has, although the characters are not necessarily the most memorable, they do have some strong characteristics, and I do like a lot of elements about them. I also really like that this is the most war Star Wars movie that we have. There are so many great elements. I love the battles, the space battles in particular, and even the whole espionage kind of thing, and, you know, getting the Death Star plans. It is such an incredibly enjoyable adventure, and I think it's honestly a great beginning to Star Wars in many regards. Whenever I watch the Star Wars movies, I always do it with the machete order, with watching Rogue One first, and then moving on from there. I think this is an incredibly great way to introduce the Empire, and really get a taste for, Darth Vader. He has one of the most memorable and most awesome scenes in all of the Star Wars lexicon. Return of the Jedi. So, yeah, literally, this is number 2 for me. I absolutely love Return of the Jedi. I actually like it more than Empire Strikes Back and A New Hope. And there's a lot of reasons why I actually like this movie far more than, in the original trilogy anyway. I love a lot of the fights in this movie, such as the battle for Endor, the space battle above in Endor. As much as I think that the whole Jabba the Hutt scene kind of, in a manner of speaking, slows the movie down a little bit, I do really enjoy the whole Jabba the Hutt sequence. I think it's fun, and there's a lot of really cool elements to it. I also love the conflict in Luke Skywalker, how he is dealing with the knowledge of finding out that Darth Vader's his father, and then eventually Leia's his sister, and just so many other stuff. There's a lot of great stuff going for this movie, and once again, going back to why I think it's stupid reasons to hate this movie are the Ewoks. Yeah, that's a stupid reason to hate the movie. I mean, I think the Ewoks are fine. I think it's a bit odd how they were able to take down the entire Empire, but I don't think it ruins the movie. So, yeah, Return of the Jedi, number 2. Revenge of the Sith. Okay, now I know you guys are gonna hate me, because Empire's not number 1! It's actually kinda low, but I love Revenge of the Sith. Revenge of the Sith has been and will always be my favorite Star Wars movie until Disney can prove me otherwise. I absolutely love everything that has to do with this movie, because this is the epitome of where everything changes in Star Wars. You have the end of the Jedi. You have the fall of Anakin Skywalker turning to Darth Vader. You have the absolute loss that he had to deal with Padme dying, and him taking on, literally killing the entire Jedi Order, and betraying his friends just because he himself felt incredibly betrayed. And honestly, as much as there are bad moments of Hayden Christensen in this movie, he has greatly improved, in my opinion. There are so many great moments with Hayden Christensen in this movie, and I understand if you still don't like him, but I think he had a solid turnaround with this movie. Yes, there is still some cheesy dialogue, but to be completely honest, I still like it. Ewan McGregor, once again, absolutely fantastic. The lightsaber fights are all absolutely wonderful. The score from John Williams is absolutely fantastic. This is the epitome of Star Wars, and how it was, and the turning point for like how everything changed in the galaxy and everything. And this is an epic. This is the movie that really consecrated that, Star Wars is an epic for me. With and as a space opera and everything, it is just so good in my opinion. Quality wise, is it the best? No, but for me, this is what culminated with Star Wars. This is the story I was waiting to see for so many years when I became a Star Wars fan after watching A New Hope and wanting to see who was Darth Vader. Where did Luke and Leia come from? Where did the stormtroopers come from? Where did the Empire come from? This is everything that I wanted to see in Star Wars, and it paid off tremendously well. Revenge of the Sith will always be my favorite Star Wars movie. Alright, there's my controversial list for the day. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. If you don't, I completely understand. Star Wars is one of those things that a lot of people really have really strong opinions on. I'm one of those people. I love Star Wars, and I have a lot of really huge, strong opinions about the franchise and everything. And personally, as much as I really don't like the new trilogy for a lot of reasons, I still consider them Star Wars. I still consider them as part of the story. And honestly, I'm looking forward to whatever Disney does next, because no matter what, even if it's a bad Star Wars movie, I will still enjoy it in a manner of speaking. So, I'm really interested in what you guys might have to say for what your personal Star Wars list is. Make sure you leave them in the comment section below. And hey, tell me if I'm wrong. I am very willing to listen to your reasons why you guys might think my list is wrong, or why my tier is wrong. But also, if you agree with me, list some of the reasons why you might agree with me. And that's basically it. Thank you so much for joining. Make sure to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And if you are new to the channel, please make sure that you subscribe and like the video, and also share it around with your friends and family. And last but not least, if you guys can, I would greatly appreciate it if you could look into my Patreon to help support the channel. If you can't, I completely understand, especially with how hard times are right now with, self-isolation at this point. I completely understand. And I hope that you guys are all safe and that you are all doing well. I am all praying for all of you and for a lot of the people who I just genuinely don't know. I'm praying for all of you and hope that you're all safe and sound and that you are getting through this. So, that's basically it. You guys take care, God bless, and I'll see you guys in the next video.